For me, how are you was neither an easy question to hear nor an easy question to ask someone else on Wednesday morning. But we need to start there. So I want us to take a full minute or two to turn to someone near you, ideally not someone you came with here tonight, but I won't judge, and ask them how they are. You might have to ask a few times and try to really, really listen, and then switch. And the second person asks the first person, how are you? And to spend a minute really, really, really listening. No interruptions, no judgment, just presence. I'll summon us back in 2 minutes. Yeah. Ready to come back together. Try to finish those last sentences. How are you now? Where are we now? In the Torah, God created a beautiful world. Then 10 generations passed from the creation of humanity to the time that God in the Torah regretted a lot of the world, so much so that the world's destruction was impending, the generation of Noach and Naamah. 10 more generations pass to introduce Avraham and Sarah to the scene. They are born into a world that became utterly corrupt, only to repopulate itself. And 10 generations later, they lead the charge for humanity to rediscover our Creator. This week, our Torah portion is Lech, Lecha. Shortly after Avraham, then called Avram, is introduced, he is told Lech, Lecha, which on its surface means an enthusiastic, you go. Not to be confused with go, or you. Often when we come to this parsha, we take a close look at the going, at the strange combination, the intensity of these two words together. What was Avram doing? Was he going somewhere physical? Was he going on the lech, the go, for his own benefit? Was the going more of an inward turning to himself, some kind of self-discovery process? Our congregant, Amy Prince, and I were talking earlier today about how this year, in this parsha, whose name is literally, you go, we should actually give ourselves permission to stop before we go. Not to jump into the analysis of going, of exactly what is ahead, but to stop before we go. To focus on this moment, perhaps to take in how we got here, and most importantly, to feel what we feel. There's a lot of grief in the air, and we know that letting ourselves feel grief is important, because when we don't let ourselves feel grief, we complicate grief. And complicated grief, months and years later, is something that is a lot harder to come back from and achieve some sense of normalcy from than really feeling what we feel. The 18th century Moroccan rabbi, Chaim ibn Attar, has a teaching about this week's parashah that can help us focus on the moment before we move forward to next steps. He notes that God's call to Avram is inevitably a call that brings Avram great distress. How could it not? God is asking Avram to leave everything that he knows. So the call, Chaim ibn Attar says, the call comes in 3 phases to honor the process of how hard it is to hear challenging news. Lech lecha me'artzecha. Go from your country. Okay. Were there other places, other lands I could live in? Umimoladetecha. Go from your birthplace. Whether you were born at NYU Hospital or in Ur-Kasdim in ancient Mesopotamia, you're leaving behind the place where your life began. Will you see it again? Umi beit avicha. Go from your family. Isn't life supposed to be about family? Was Avram and Sarai's family of origin so awful that they wanted to distance them from their eventual chosen family? Lech lecha me'artzecha u'mimoladetecha u'mibeit avicha. Leave behind the familiar, leave behind the connections, and leave behind the home that is where the heart is. We will come to find out that Hashem has big plans for Avram and Sarai. But in this one verse, even before saying where they would be going to, Canaan, or what would happen there, I will make you a great nation, Harachaman, our compassionate God, revealed the news gradually and took a big pause after saying that Avram would have to leave his family. We owe this same compassion to ourselves and to each other right now. it is tempting to me right now, to dive further into the words Lech, Lecha, to gloss over the etnachta, the wishbone-shaped mark in our texts, the semicolon that is baked in there to say not only can you just read this one pasuk, this one verse, but actually it's worthwhile to read the first half of the verse and to stop right there. To stop in that in-between place when we're challenged, when we're faced with something hard, when we're faced with grief. Before we even move forward, we dwell a little longer, even in the middle of a verse of Torah. In the days ahead, we will start coming to terms with the challenges the coming years will bring for the United States and for the world. We will consider what's next and how our community will continue to be a center for joyful activism at this moment in American history, at this moment in world history. Tonight, let's focus, though, on CBST as a unique community. Not necessarily Ur Kasdim, the ancient Mesopotamian, polytheistic, War of the Gods kind of place that Avram and Sarai maybe were leaving, but as a community in which people feel really at home, a place where people have found themselves, a place where people have found family. You in the room, you online, so many of us describe finding something here that is unique and often come back to that word family. We will continue to be a space that provides courage and grounding for the strength that people may need on their journeys. And we will continue to be a space in which people can bring their distress and find solace, continue to be a space in which we find joy. Joy as an act of spiritual resistance, and joy when it is just plain joy. So tonight is not about figuring it all out. And I know that we're going to figure out what's next at different ways, different paces. And I'm looking forward to us getting to talk about that too. And please don't be shy if you're thinking that way. To talk to me, to talk to our clergy, our program team about what's next. But I want to cite one more sacred text. And it's not Bereshit, and it's not the Or HaChaim. It's not even Masha Gessen or Timothy Snyder, though those are pretty awesome too. It's a film called Gay Chorus, Deep South. The documentary was made after the 2016 elections and is about people from the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus linking up with the Oakland Interfaith Gospel Choir and taking a bus tour through some of the states that had then, still have, anti-LGBTQ legislation pending. They meet many people along the way, largely folks of evangelical Christian orientations, and they sing and they sing and they sing, maybe in some of the most unlikely places. For some of the chorus members, it's a Lech Lecha moment away from the familiar, away from the bubble of the Bay Area. For other chorus members, it's a Lech Lecha moment back to the familiar. Dr. Timothy Seelig himself, the now former artistic director and conductor of the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus, was the music minister, one of the music ministers at First Baptist Church in Houston, Texas, and came out during his time of ministry there. You can read about it online. You can read about it in his memoirs. It was not pretty. And yet he, together with other chorus members, were returning to familiar communities in the Carolinas, in Tennessee, in Mississippi, in Alabama. Artzachem, Moladetchem, Beit Avichem, lands, birthplaces, places of their families, places that were both reminders of the fondness of the communities in which they grew up, and great triggers of trauma. The landscape in the film is speckled with Confederate flags, and the live soundtrack is people singing their hearts out with one another. The second time I woke up on Wednesday morning, the time I was willing to actually get up and go about my day, I said good morning to some people in the lobby of my building. How are you, they asked. I found myself tensing up. Fine, not fine. Wait, what do you mean by that? Who'd you vote for? Who did that? Why am I judging you? Okay, I finally got to kind of, how are you? Let's do some turning inward for a little longer. Let's find out how we really are, even if it takes a friend or a stranger or someone you just met tonight who's maybe a stranger no more saying, no, but really, how are you? And let's push that question on ourselves. Really, how am I? How are each of us? Let's make sure we get there authentically ourselves to answer that question, and let's do that for each other. Sounds like a few of you have seen the film, but I think a lot of you haven't. I'd love to recommend it as a text for us to start thinking about around not just policy change, but cultural change, which is a conversation that I think we can eventually start to have, but not tonight. We will have more of these important conversations about ongoing and renewed activism, the unpredictable connections that will make sure that even a step backward, seemingly a large step backward in the long arc of time, can still be, please God, an interruption on the path toward a better world. Shabbat shalom.